Welcome back to the IBJJF podcast. My guest today is Jake Watson. Jake is a Maracaba BJJ black belt, and he's also a professional jiu-jitsu commentator. Jake, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Danny. This podcast is the direction that the IBJJF has been taking in terms of media and everything that has been just being pushed by them. It's just been great. You and I have had many great memories together, and it's really cool to see just the future and how it's going. And jiu-jitsu is getting more professional. Jiu-jitsu is getting it's becoming more and more of a sport that everybody can kind of enjoy. And it's cool to see that the IBJJF is taking the steps necessary to give the athletes a better platform to discuss it in a more professional way. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm excited too. We're going to talk about the 2023 Europeans, first major gi championship of the year, and also the start of the gi season. So what are you excited to see in the Europeans, and what makes you excited about the 2023 gi season overall?
I think going into the 2023 season, I'm really excited to see these athletes getting hungrier and everybody in the jiu-jitsu community becoming more aggressive. And it's just been so interesting to see the new names come up. I think that kids are starting younger. They're getting better quicker. The game is evolving, but so is the training. So the level is just getting higher and higher and higher. And I think 2023, we're going to see some very interesting results. We're going to see some very interesting matchups. And I think we're going to see some really exciting jiu-jitsu, like better than we've seen so far.
We have a ton of amazing competitors signed up for the Europeans, some athletes switching weight divisions, so it makes the divisions really interesting. Let's dive into some of the divisions. I think obviously we could talk about every division at black belt, but
yeah,
let's start with some of the ones that really stood out. I thought the male featherweight division was particularly really impressive with the names that signed up. You have Diogo Reis, you have Fabricio Andre, Shane Jamil Hill-Taylor is coming back for the first time since Pans of last year, Alex Sodre, Leonardo Saggiorio, Israel Almeida. Got some great competitors, some guys that have faced each other before, and some guys like Diogo Reis who's switching divisions, which can provide for some really interesting potential matchups.
Yeah, I think in the male featherweight division, the names that really stand out to me, Diogo Reis, Fabricio Andre. I think Alex Sondre really stands out to me too, but I'm really interested to see Shane Hill-Taylor, what kind of adjustments that he's going to make. He's a black belt world champion, one of very few American black belt world champions. And I think that him having a lot of experience competing at the highest level. I mean, all these competitors at this point have experience competing at the highest level, but Shane has been world champion, been in the finals of the world championship again versus Fabricio Andre, and that was Fabricio Andre's time to shine. But it's a bracket rife with new talent and also with the experienced talent like Shane. And I think that the wild card in that bracket, not the wild card, I shouldn't say it like that, because I think that term is becoming looser and looser over time. I think everybody can pretty much win, but I think that Diogo Reis is a very interesting person to look at in that division. Like I said, we saw him win the ADCC 2022, but we also saw him in the gi tournaments against really high level competitors, but sort of up and down with the results a little bit. I think that when he goes to this tournament, we're going to see I'm really excited to see Diogo Reis at this time at Europeans, because I think he's going to bring some more of that really technical, really well thought out game plan, which I think is, the kid's 21 years old, Danny?
Yeah,
and
20
he's out
or
there,
21.
He's out there thinking like he's been grappling for 30 years, So it's very interesting to see, and I'm really excited for that bracket too.
Yeah, he's such a technical grappler, and at light feather, he won the Brazilian Nationals last year. He's had great results in the gi. He had a great match with Pato at the Worlds, and I think a potential match maybe between Diogo Reis and even Fabricio Andre or Shane Jamil Hill-Taylor would be really interesting.
Oh, yeah. And those two will fight. Like Diogo Reis, Fabricio Andre, those guys will fight, and they'll fight it out. They're good friends, but they'll leave it all out there on the mat. And that's always really exciting to see as well.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the female lightweight division. I think we have two of the best female black belt competitors in the world in this division, Natalie Ribeiro and Luisa Montero. Luisa didn't get to compete in the major gi championships of 2022. Now she's back. She's talked about wanting to do the Grand Slam in 2023, win all the major tournaments. Natalie Ribeiro came really close to doing that last year. She won Europeans, she won Pans, she won Brazilian Nationals. Unfortunately, had a hand injury during the Worlds that kind of put a little bit of a hamper on her performance. She still competed great, but she wasn't able to reach that top spot on the podium. What are your thoughts on Luisa and Natalie and just that lightweight division?
First of all, their resumes speak for themselves, right? I think Luisa Montero, when I was commentating the IBJJF Grand Prix that both Actually, Luisa Montero was at the Black Belt Grand Prix, but we saw that was the one where we saw Janaina Lebre win. Luisa has won Pans more time than I think I've attended Pans. I think I've attended Pans less than she's won it. Very experienced competitor. Obviously, at such a great room at Atos Jiu-Jitsu. But I think that she has so much experience and she's still improving. That's the cool thing, is like she's been doing jiu-jitsu forever and she's still getting better. And I think that Natalie Ribeiro, one thing that really impresses me about her is her grit and she's very resilient. I remember was it Pan Am's, Dan? You can correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it Pan Am's where she was battling an injury the whole tournament and she went out there and won, and she overcame that adversity to win the tournament on her path to a hopeful Grand Slam, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So both of these competitors are so great for a lot of the same reasons and a lot of different reasons as well. I think that they're definitely, like, I believe that they're front runners in the division. But I am very excited to see those two go at it as well. I think if we're going to go head to head, it's such an interesting clash of styles. I mean, the passing pressure of Luisa Montero is just palpable. You can see it, how uncomfortable it is to defend her guard passing. And Natalie Ribeiro, so technical, great guard, great attacks, great submissions. It's an interesting matchup that I guess it sort of depends. Like when competitors are that high level, it sort of depends on the day, right? Like who shows up a little more ready. And I think that's kind of the case with these two. If they were to meet, let's say in the final or at another point in the tournament, if they don't seed it.
They both have wins over one another, and they've had really close, exciting matches. I know they fought in the final of the Pans one year. They fought at the 2021 Worlds, I believe, in the semifinals. So they're definitely familiar with each other, and they've put on great matches. So I think we can expect to see more of that at the Europeans.
Yeah, I hope so.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the male lightweight division. This is another one that has so many incredible names. We got Marcio Andre. He's won the Europeans 4 times. We've got Andy Murasaki, no-gi world champion, world silver medalist, won the absolute GP super fight he had in the fall of 2022. Then we have Mayram Alves, who's going up 2 weight divisions, 2022 world champion. I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about with Mayram. Elijah Dorsey, Gabriel Rollo, Natan Chuang. Some of the standout competitors in that division. There's more as well, but those are some of the ones that really jumped out. So when I list those names off, is there anyone that jumps out to you that you're particularly excited to watch?
Well, the cool thing is, Danny, every one of these brackets, I feel like, has the new generation, like what I'm talking about, that new hungry generation. Elijah Dorsey is a name. He is a name in the bracket. We can't really rule out anybody. That's the thing. The jiu-jitsu and the level that we're seeing in this day is you can't do what you did before. You can't just see 2 names in a bracket and go, okay, it's going to be one of those guys. I think that that's borderline foolish. So when you list off those last 3 names, those are all up and comers. Those are all people who are hungry. They haven't had their breakout at black belt yet. Some of them haven't had the opportunity to. Like I think Elijah Dorsey's been a black belt less than a year, right?
Yeah.
So they haven't had the opportunity to go out there and just have that breakout performance at black belt. But what a time to do it at Europeans, right? You have to, another thing you got to take into consideration is they know, like, hey, they want to win. They want it bad. They're new. They're new in the black belt. So when they go against competitors like Marcio Andre, who has been, I mean, he's incredible. I think Marcio Andre has some of the best jiu-jitsu in that division, pound for pound. I've seen him go against competitors like super heavyweight, and he looks stronger than them. And I'm like, what is that about? This guy's a lightweight. And we've seen him compete. I think we've seen him compete featherweight, lightweight, middleweight. He's competed across different weight classes. A lot of experience. He hasn't had that world title victory yet, but he's also taken on new responsibilities, like with the gym and with. He's a father, a great father. So that's like a different pain of life while these new competitors are coming in. But I also think if we're looking at the other people in the bracket, you brought up a really interesting name, Mayram Alves. And no, I'm leaving Andy Murasaki for last because I think Andy Murasaki has been on a tear in a sort of a way. I think Mayram Alves is going to be very surprising for a lot of the lightweight competitors. I don't think it's a secret that the heavier you get, typically, this isn't the case for everybody, but the heavier the weight divisions get, typically the competitors aren't as fast. Mayram Alves is like a bullet. That guy is quick.
Lightning fast.
It's lightning. It's borderline hard to commentate. It's hard to talk about because I'm just waiting. Sometimes I'm like, I stop talking because I can see him winding up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to miss it. And then I do anyway, because my brain doesn't work that fast. But I think he's very quick. I think he's incredibly technical. There's a reason why he's a world champion. And I think that we could have a situation like we saw with Francisco Lowe in the open class division. Like, he's lighter, sure, but does that really matter today? It matters less now than it did back then, or back even a few years ago. So I think that Mayram Alves is definitely, I think he's a legitimate contender. I really do. And then Andy Murasaki, and you know what, Danny, I love being a guest on podcasts because I feel like I can just ramble, and that's what I'm here for. Is just to do what I do best, and that is to ramble. But I think Andy Murasaki at lightweight he is going to be really hard to beat, very hard to beat. If you remember, listeners, if you remember competing at middleweight at the World Championship in 2022, I mean, the only person that really stopped the steamrolling of Andy Murasaki was Tynan Dalpra. And Andy Murasaki started the fight great versus Tynan. Big takedown right off the bat. Tynan eventually did Tynan things, right? And it's just like, that's just a whole nother conversation we'll get to when we get to Tynan's division. But Andy Murasaki looked incredible. And at No-Gi Worlds also looked incredible. And I think that he kind of grapples gi and no-gi similarly, I would say. It's the same sort of measured, consistent, great passing, great movement on his feet. I mean, he uses his guard and he sweeps you like immediately. Like, it feels like he's just, okay, I don't want to be on my back anymore. I'm going to sweep you. I think that he has a lot at his disposal. I think Andy Murasaki, if I were to put like my opinion out there, I'm not going to Paris, so I can say, hey, who do I think is going to win? I would say that the person I would say probably is the front runner. If I were to say that there was an odd, I would say Andy Murasaki is probably the front runner. But man, like I said before, there's so many great competitors in this division, and somebody like Marcio Andre has the ability and the experience to mitigate that. He really, really does. He's so good. He's so technical. He's so consistent, and he's got I call it like an IQ. He's got like the jiu-jitsu IQ for it. And I just think it's such an interesting division.
It really is.
I love that. All those names. It's just it's crazy to think that bracket is just coming together in Paris and not here in America.
So I want to hear your thoughts on a potential matches, I should say, between Mayram Alves. Imagine Mayram and Marcio, or Mayram and Andy Murasaki. Two matchups that I think before the signups came in, you probably wouldn't have expected to see at this event. So what do you think about a potential matchup between Mayram, who's reached the top of the light feather division, and Andy and Marcio, who've reached the top of the lightweight division? How do you think those matches could potentially play out?
So I think that one thing that Andy Murasaki and Marcio have at their disposal, and I think Andy Murasaki probably a little bit more than Marcio versus Mayram, is physical strength. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday who was asking, hey, in jiu-jitsu, it was somebody who's never done jiu-jitsu before. And they asked me, in jiu-jitsu, is technique really more than strength? And at the base level, absolutely, because it's assumed that I have better technique than you do. But all three of these competitors are world class, like top of the top. So technique for technique, it's just styles, right? But the physical strength, when the technique is the same, is sort of that X factor. It's that thing that takes them a little bit further. So if technique is equal, but somebody's a little bit stronger, or somebody's a little bit better shape, or a better athlete, better cardio, it's a huge advantage. And that's why we're seeing these new I don't want to say the new wave, but I will, of competitors and teaching styles and coaching styles and strength and conditioning. Is everything is coming together, and it's becoming more professional. These athletes are taking better care of their body. They're eating better. They're sleeping better. They're meeting with nutritionists. Like, it wasn't like that before. I mean, rest in peace, Leandro Lo was drinking like a liter of Coca-Cola every single day, and he was out there killing people, And so nowadays, no one drinks Coca-Cola anymore. They're drinking like, I don't know, maybe Diet Coke, but it's like, it's just a different time. And I think that if we were to see a matchup between Mayram Alves and Andy Murasaki, let's say, I think that Mayram, incredibly technical, comes from a great academy at Dream Art, an incredible athlete as well. Yeah. But there's going to be situations that Andy Murasaki might be able to force that will be difficult for Mayram. right? Like you get Andy Murasaki. If I'm 200 pounds, if Andy Murasaki was trying to pass my guard, it would feel like a bajillion pounds on top of me. I would not want him. I would want to be pushing away or locking a close guard or something. So I imagine Merriam is going to have a game plan to mitigate the strength. But we've seen Andy go against people who he just looks so much physically stronger. He's able to get in those Gustavo Batista-esque positions where your legs are crossed and you're in your guard and you're wondering how you even got here. I think that Marcio and Andy is a matchup where it's like, okay, decision making is much, much more important. Like the decisions that those two make in the game that they play, Marcio could take it, and he could take it. I think that Mayram is going to have to be a little more on point all the time in order to mitigate the size difference versus both of those guys.
Definitely. I think any of those matchups between Marcio, Andy, and Mayram, any combination of those are going to be incredible to watch. Let's move on to the female middleweight division. In this division, we got Elizabeth Clay, who ended 2022 on such a high note. She won gold at Nogi Pans, Nogi Worlds. I believe she had all submissions except the final against Amy Campo at Nogi Worlds, so she's been on a tear. We got Raquel Canuto, and we also got Talita Silva from Dream Art. Talita won Europeans, took gold in that division last year. So what do you think about that division, female middleweight, and some of the potential style matchups we could see?
Yeah, I think another interesting name in female middleweight is Nancy Griffin. Or sorry, Vanessa Griffin. I read her middle name. No, Vanessa Griffin is another name in there. I know she didn't have the result that she wanted versus Elizabeth Clay, I think, in the finals of their division. But she's also a great name in there, and she's been coming up, and she's out of Crazy 88, and a great competitor. I've had the chance to talk to her before as well. She's always like playing with a Rubik's Cube before she goes out and competes. It's pretty interesting. But I think like you're totally right. Elizabeth Clay looked fantastic at Nogi Worlds. And I think that we definitely saw like this renewed confidence. I think we saw like this just real her jiu-jitsu looked really sure of herself. That's what it really looked like. She looked confident, like she was the person to beat out there. And it showed. I was very, very impressed. And I think as far as the other names in the list, Talita Silva, and you had said Raquel Canuto, the Iron Lady, both incredible as well. I will say that I think Elizabeth Clay riding that momentum that she had from Nogi Worlds will have a say in it. I think that Elizabeth was in her element for sure. I think Nogi is definitely some places she feels very, very comfortable, and she's also amazing in the gi. But I think we see a lot more of Raquel Canuto in the gi. We see a lot more of Talita Silva in the gi. So I'm interested to see what kind of new additions to the game of Elizabeth Clay will be made. But I want to see it. I want to see that division. I think the other two competitors are great as well. I think Elizabeth also, she's a little more, and I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I think she's a little more well known. Like more people know of Elizabeth Clay. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that she was making waves when she was like 15, 16 years old in the community. Now she's an adult and she's doing more and more and more. So she's more of like she had like this different establishment period than Talita Silva and Raquel Canuto. I just think that the division, those three in the division is very interesting. But I also want to say that Vanessa Griffin poses an interesting addition in the division as well. I would say that Vanessa Griffin is someone definitely to watch out for because she's capable of making those upset victories.
Definitely. And I think it'll be interesting to see if any of those female competitors jump into the open class too. I think they could all do really well.
I imagine they will. I imagine Elizabeth Clay is definitely going to want to, as well as Talita Silva.
Two more divisions I wanted to chat with you about, Jake. The first one is the male heavyweight division. We have Bruno Lima, who won medium heavy gold at Europeans last year. Gabriel Oliveira, Felipe Andrew, who was the double gold champion at Europeans 2022. Adam Wardzinski, he won this division last year at Europeans. Hideo Zuki and Devontae Johnson. Lots of great potential matchups in that one. And that one is, to me, is really hard to pick a favorite or a front runner. I know Felipe won double gold last year, but some of those other athletes are definitely capable of going all the way to the gold medal and giving him a great match.
Yeah. All those names, there's a lot to unpack there. I would say, so when you had sent me this episode, Danny, I made a list, right? Every one of the competitors in the divisions, and I tried to highlight who I thought would, really make an impact. And then I tried to highlight and change the color text of the people that I thought are really front runners. man, I had a lot of highlights. And I think that Bruno Lima is a very interesting person to watch out for in this division. He is very technically strong. He has been he had worked with Keenan and learned a lot of the lapel stuff. And I think a lot of the lapel guard entries, really big part of the gi metagame. I think it would be I would be remiss to not bring that up. I think in the gi, you're going to see a lot more lapel stuff. It's isolating, it's hard to escape, but Bruno Lima does a great job of escaping all of that. I think the game plan and the game style that's probably the most outlier is, of course, Adam Wardzinski with the butterfly guard. I don't think a lot of people really do butterfly guard nowadays. He's just holding on to history with an ironclad grip, and it's awesome. I love it. I love butterfly guard. It's like my favorite guard. I just don't do it as good as him, so sometimes I just give up. But he's incredibly talented at that, and like you just said, Danny, he won last year. He's established. He always shows up to Europeans. And you know what? So has Bruno Lima. Bruno Lima, not only did he win medium heavyweight, he also has won at brown belt, beating Ronaldo Jr. in the final of a certain year at Europeans. The year I forget which year he went out to Europeans and beat. He did. And Hirazuchi, of course, amazing competitor out of NS Brotherhood. And Devontae Johnson, I actually had an interesting conversation with Devontae Johnson. That man has fluctuated weight classes so much. He has so much experience across weight classes, and that's just his metabolism. Like, that's just his genetics, his metabolism. He's competed as low as medium heavyweight and as high as ultra heavyweight and looked big in both divisions. Like, how do you look big in every division that you fight? That's insane. But he is also somebody, I mean, he's had great results. I think he got third place at Worlds in 2021, I want to say.
Yeah.
In 2021, he got, and forgive me for being hazy on my memory, but third place at Worlds. He's done amazing at the big tournaments. I would say that a name to watch out for is Felipe Andrew. I haven't brought that one up yet. He is consistently competing in the gi. He's competing in the gi all the time. And he came to Phoenix, won very recently, and he competed in the Phoenix Open and just like trashed everybody. It was double gold. It was very convincing. And Felipe Andrew, another person who has won the European Championship. So in the
won the open class multiple times. Yep.
Won the open class multiple times. So I think that he is Felipe Andrew in this division, to me, seems like the man to beat. Very dangerous for all the reasons that people know about. Just a violent footlock, great triangle, and more than that. I mean, he's constantly evolving. He's still very young. And I'm really excited to see him at heavyweight too, which I think is interesting. Usually he competes super heavyweight.
Yep.
But we're seeing him kind of lock down into the heavyweight division. So I wonder, maybe he wants to go for a run there too and look for the heavyweight European title.
Yeah, Felipe at the end of 2022 really experimented with heavy. Like you said, he was competing at super heavy for the major tournaments in 2022. So watching him lose a little bit of that weight, get in better shape, and just seeing how his game translates to that little bit lower weight class is going to be great to watch this season.
Oh yeah, I remember there was a point, because I've had the pleasure of sharing the mats with Felipe Andrew on a couple different tournament occasions, where I was like 185 or 186 pounds of my gi on for one of the tournaments, and he was like 222 with his gi on. And then towards the end of 2022, I got married, and so I got heavier, and and so I was like 200 pounds, and then he cut down for something that was 186, and I was like, that's so strange to think about. Like, we both went the other way.
Flip-flopped.
I'm not out of shape. I am a shape, but I'm not in shape per se, but I am a shape, I'm a commentator now.
Yes. Commentator shape. Let's talk about the super heavy division. This is another division that's super interesting to me. The main reason is because Kaynan Duarte is going up to this division. He won the Worlds at heavyweight. He won the Absolute GP in 2022. So we've got Kaynan in that division. We've got Marcus Scooby Ribeiro, who's an incredible competitor, won the Pans in 2022. And then we have Stefan Banta. Stefan was a brown belt for the vast majority of 2022. He won almost every major title, gi and no gi, won a lot of open class divisions at major tournaments. Him making his black belt debut just kind of shakes up this division, and also Kaynan being in it. So what do you think about Kaynan being up at super heavy? Let's start with that.
I think it's just like him at heavy. I think Kaynan he can compete heavyweight, super heavyweight, and ultra heavyweight. And I think Kaynan Duarte has such a strong understanding of jiu-jitsu competition that I think he can do well at every division. I think he can win every division.
Yeah, we saw him win the absolute GP and faced athletes of different sizes, did so well in that. And his game just is so technical. He uses a lot of jiu-jitsu that people would say is maybe basic or simple, but he does it at such a high level with such advanced details. He can make it work on everyone.
Oh yeah, I remember when I was purple belt. I might have told this story before on a certain podcast, but one time I went to Brea Jiu-Jitsu in California, and Kynan competed in the tournament the next day, the division above me. There was 2 divisions. There was the purple belt lightweight Grand Prix and the purple belt heavyweight Grand Prix. I won the lightweight, Kynan won the heavyweight. And Kynan attended a class the day before taught by the owner of the gym. And the next day in tournament, Kynan used techniques he learned the day before. He never knew the techniques. He learned them the day before and did them in tournament the next day and won the tournament with him. That's how sharp he is. That's the kind of learning that Kynan Duarte is capable of. And even at this level, I'm actually particularly excited to watch Kynan because I think he is hungry to kind of undo the gi competition that he had in last year. Mind you, Kynan Duarte is 2022 black belt world champion. But if you remember, after he won the match, he apologized to the crowd for his performance. I wish I could do that. I wish I could apologize to the crowd after winning something. But he apologized and he said, "I'm sorry, it wasn't my best performance." And then I'm like, okay, well now next year now everybody's done, right? That's what Kynan's mindset is. I think I'm really excited to go out and see him compete in the gi at Europeans, because I think he's coming in fresh and hungry, like to put on a show and to do it the way that he knows he's capable of, but maybe he was physically incapable of because of injuries or whatever the case may be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm really excited for that. I think Scooby's a really great competitor too. Last time I saw him compete, and I might have just been inactive, but was at Pan Am's. I think he closed out the division with was it one of the Muniz brothers?
Yeah, he also competed at the Brazilian Nationals. He did a bunch of tournaments in Brazil as well.
Yes. Okay. So great competitor. I mean, what I saw out of him at Pan Am's was awesome. I think he's somebody who is another one of those guys who are just consistently improving. Good friends with the Muniz brothers and a lot of the guys down at Dream Art and Alliance. So I'm sure he's probably mingled a lot of mat time with those guys as well. And the training that, like, the community that those guys have and the level that they're competing at is incredible. So I think he's definitely a front runner. But Stefan Banta is you know what, man? He is somebody who can shake this whole thing up. He really is. I mean, brown belt and black belt is, I think that the biggest splitting factor between those two levels is mindset and belt color, and that's it. I think literally the color of the belt is one thing that separates those two things, which is nothing. You know, it's like that's fake. But then mindset, because I think that if you can win black belt world, or if you can win brown belt worlds double gold, you can win black belt worlds. I truly believe that because the level's so close. So I'm wondering, hey, Stefan Banta can go. What if he goes out there and has a matchup with Kynan Duarte? You know what I mean? What if they meet? And I know that because Stefan Banta, he won brown belt worlds in 2022, correct?
Yes.
So he's going to get his first year black belt free. I'm interested to see, how he's going to be seated for this tournament. I'm interested to see what if him and Kynan meet in the semifinals or the finals. Like, that would be hold your breath kind of stuff, because while I just said, Kynan is capable of winning the whole tournament, I think he's consistent across the board. Man, what if Stefan Banta gets through Scooby? What if Kynan gets through Scooby and then they have that match? I think that is going to be such a huge moment for Stefan. And we're really going to see, okay, like Stefan Banta in his first tournament at black belt, essentially, right? This is his debut.
Yes, black belt debut.
Black belt debut. He's a big opportunity to go out there and take the whole thing. I know he's very technical. Mm-hmm. He has a great understanding of the rules. You saw him narrowly defeat Luke Griffith in the final of the Nogi Worlds. But like, that's 100% him knowing what he needed to do in a horribly, horribly tense moment of the match. Like, last 30 seconds, you're going to get mounted and the right move that you need to do to not lose the fight. That's crazy awareness. Like, a lot of people don't think about that. That's like a lot of people freeze. they will just be like, oh, that's it. Oh man, I almost won. But he clawed himself from the depths of defeat to, I just spit on my microphone. Clawed himself from the depths of defeat to defeat Luke Griffith. I think that speaks a lot to his mental fortitude and his ability to just push through. So I'm really interested to see how Stefan Banta is going to do this tournament. I think that he's somebody definitely look out for. He is he the favorite? I don't think it's realistic to call him the favorite, but definitely somebody who can win. Really, I think that he goes out there and he shows out and he shows up and he is the Stefan Banta that showed up at every tournament he basically entered in 2022, then he can definitely pull it out. I really do think that he can definitely pull it out.
Definitely. So we've talked about some of the best divisions, a lot of great athletes, huge names that are highly ranked that have won world titles before. It's going to be really exciting. I do want to talk to you too about athletes that could potentially go for the Grand Slam this year. We had a couple do it last year in Gabriele Pisagna. She actually won double gold at all the major tournaments. We had Maisa win gold at all the major tournaments. But I think this year we're going to have some more athletes really trying to attempt that. So I think obviously Gabriele, who got it last year, and Maisa will probably go for the same thing again this year. Tynan has mentioned that he wants to go for the Grand Slam. Luisa Montero said she wants it at lightweight. I'm assuming Natalie Ribeiro is probably going to go for it, just being at Europeans again, and just because of the season that she had last year. Potentially Taliesin Suarez. Kainan Duarte could be another potential athlete. We haven't seen him at Europeans since 2019, so his participation in the event could suggest that he wants to win gold at all the major tournaments. Are there any athletes that you're particularly excited to watch go for the Grand Slam this year?
You know, the thing is, you see all those athletes who are desiring to go for the Grand Slam, they're all so dominant in general. Like Tynan Dalpra. There's competitors that do what Tynan Dalpra does at middleweight in their respective bracket. Like Maisa Bastos just looks borderline unstoppable. She looks so good all the time. Gabriele Pisagna, same thing. Tynan Dalpra, same thing. It's just so hard to beat these competitors, right? Kainan Duarte is another one. I think I'm most excited probably to see how the brackets that Tynan Dalpra competes in play out. That's what I am most excited for. Not just the performance of Tynan Dalpra, but more so how people are going to approach the Tynan Dalpra problem. Because if you're a black belt and you're competing at middleweight, that is who you're measuring yourself up to. And my gosh, he has very few moments in recent antiquity that he actually bled, right? I think that Tommy Langacker almost took his back. And ever since then, Izaki lost by a couple advantages, I think, at Worlds. But other than that, Tynan has really looked great. He's really looked so consistent. And we see similar things with competitors like Maisa Bastos. I think that she has essentially not really had, it looks like, too much difficulty in the IBJJF circuit. She competed and went up, I think, several weight classes to compete in the IBJJF Women's Grand Prix. That's several weight classes. You know what I mean? Like, she's out here, she's moving to other, weight brackets to challenge herself even further, which speaks to how much better she's going to be for Rooster weight when she goes back to Rooster. So I'm really excited about those competitors, the ones that are going for the Grand Slam. I think Gabby Pisagna, the way she's been competing, Amy Campa poses a very interesting threat to the Grand Slam. But when we saw Gabby Pisagna do the first, has she done two yet? I think she's done 2 Grand Slams, right?
Gabriele Pisagna, she won double gold at every major tournament in 2022. She won her first world title in 2021 at black belt.
And she got Grand Slam in 2021?
No.
Okay. See, but that's the thing, is like, she's won so much. You could say, yes, she did. And I'd be like, oh, of course she did. She's been doing so great. She's another one of those competitors that's like sort of Buchecha-esque. You see her in the bracket and you're like, oh man, she's going to be in the final. Like, you just have that feeling. And it's very, very impressive. Sorry, I get super passionate about this stuff. It's just, I love seeing like dominant competitors like this. You wonder, like, what are they doing different that makes them so dominant? That's the thing, is that what are they doing? What is Tynan eating and drinking? And where is he sleeping? And what kind of gi is he? Everything, it's one of those kind of situations. So I'm really excited to see those competitors. And you know what? There's more than just the Grand Slam competitors. I'm really excited to see returning familiar faces of the Europeans as well, right? Like, I think Espen Mathisen is going to be really exciting to watch as well.
He's in Tynan's division.
He's in
So
Tynan's division. Very
yeah.
interesting, right? Like, shoot, Tommy looked great against Tynan. And then Tynan sort of figured it out a little bit. I'm interested to see what Espen's going to do. Because, I mean, we've seen Espen Machisen, who has competed really light. I think he's competed as low as lightweight, correct?
Yes.
So, and he's competed against Lucas Barbosa and Baron Bullied him and took his back and beat him. Like, that's a huge discrepancy in size that from the lowest that Espen has fought to the highest that Barbosa has fought. That is important statistic to take into information. Sorry, it's important information to take into consideration when you consider how Espen might do versus Tynan. I think that's very interesting. I also think Diego Pato is an interesting person to watch out for. I think Taliesin Suarez is a very interesting person to watch out for, like you brought up. Taliesin, he just came off of his first IBJJF world title, and that was so awesome to see. He was really, really excited. But he's another person. Like, he could be the next, if Mikey Musumeci comes back and has a match with him, that'd be freaking incredible. That'd be super fun to watch. But what Mikey did at Roosterweight, I could see Taliesin doing at Roosterweight, especially with Bruno Malfacini and Kao Teja not being in the tournament scene really, or the brackets very much anymore. I could see him being the next king of Rooster. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. I'm most excited to watch Tynan. I just think last year, the only tournament he didn't win was Brazilian Nationals. And I think he's expressed interest in doing it this year. He also has the super fight coming up with Isaac. That's going to be 30 minutes. So he really seems to always be pushing his limits, taking on new challenges. And I think this is one that could potentially push him. It's going to be really cool to see.
Yeah, and I think that him accepting or him not just accepting, but also pushing for the Isaac fight is really, really cool. I think it speaks to, and it's no secret, you hear Tynan Dalper speak. He's very professional. He's very friendly, and he's very confident. And Izaki Bayens is incredible in all the same respects, right? That's going to be a barn burner. That's insane. That, I mean, a 30-minute match. That there's many variables that go into it, but I think that Tynan Dalpra is going to go and he's going to approach this match in a sort of way that I think he wants to have an exciting match with Isaac. I think he might want to go out there and try to make a statement, but it's also Izaki. So, gosh, it's just thinking about it's like not even what we're talking about. We're not even here to talk about that, Danny, but still, it's just so fun to think about. And you know what? I think that, like I said before, and I want to kind of explain this a little better. About like being excited for how people are going to figure out Tynan. I think that goes with every division. I think it's exciting to think about how people are going to figure out Maisa, or when Mikey was, I wanted to see how people are going to figure out Mikey. I want to see how people would have figured out Buchecha or figured out Kynan. Or I want to see how competitors are going to adjust their game plan to evolve the meta, because I think that one athlete, staying on the throne forever is really, really hard to do. And it's going to happen less and less as time goes on. I don't think we'll see somebody beat Buchecha's record, let's say, for a very long time. We might. I'm not saying we won't. I'm just saying that is going to be so hard because he was dominant.
13 world titles.
13 world titles is, and he gave one away. Like, he could have 14. He just gave one away. He's like, I got enough of these. I don't have 13 fingers, guys. I'm sorry. Like, how are you going to do that? You know what I mean? Like, that's insane. And I don't know if we'll see another athlete that dominant, but we will see jiu-jitsu progress further and further and further. So I'm really excited to see what people are going to do to figure out Tynan's game, because I think it's good for jiu-jitsu. I think it's good for the community. It's good for the competition scene. It's good for other competitors, for somebody to beat Tynan. Not that I want anybody to lose or want anybody to win in particular, but I think that it would just be, it's like, it makes it so much more spicy. It makes the brackets more fun to watch, knowing that there's not just this one guy that's going to plow through everybody, but also that everybody has this chance and everybody's hungry. You know what I mean? Do you kind of know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because I think Tynan, man, he is so crazy good at jiu-jitsu, and he is so far ahead of the middleweight division right now that there's going to be this necessity for everybody else to work harder and for everybody else to evolve. You need to. Otherwise, there will only be a Tynan Dalper at middleweight. You know what I mean? But in order for Tynan to be pushed even further and to potentially, like, you know, oh my gosh, you know, Tynan is in a tough spot this match, let's say, people are going to need to kind of evolve with the metagame that Tynan is demanding, because he's commanding the division right now. And I think Maíz is commanding the Roosterweight division. It's whoever's at the top is commanding the meta. You know what I mean? Like, you are the person people need to beat.
Yeah, they
That's
raised
why
the
Angelo
level.
was so hard to beat.
Yeah, they raised the level not only of their division but of the whole sport. You have a lot of
Exactly.
people who've commented on watching Tynan and trying to learn things and pick things up about his game, and I think that even by itself has raised the level of jiu-jitsu that we've seen recently.
Absolutely. And I respect it so much. Like, the fact that Tynan is so well-rounded is so good for jiu-jitsu. It's so good for the people in the middleweight division. Even like Izaki, who is established champion, like, he is needing to be pushed by the new king. You know what I mean? Like, the new sheriff. And I think that it's just so cool to think about that jiu-jitsu is being pushed by somebody who, like, 5 years ago was in high school. Like the meta of a hundreds of years old sport is being pushed by this younger generation of people who just care about the sport and who love jiu-jitsu and who want to be good and who want to be champions. And I think it's really cool. So I'm really excited to see what answers people are going to have. And this is the start of the gi season where those answers are going to come out.
Another thing that's really exciting to me about the start of the gi season is to see the open class divisions at some of these major championships. So I went through the adult male black belts, we'll do male and female, and some names that I think will most likely sign up for the open class and that definitely have a great chance to take gold would be Felipe Andrew. Like we said, he got double gold at last year's Europeans. Kynan, who won the Worlds, he won the Absolute GP, always does well in the open class. Mason Fowler is competing at ultra heavy, so we could potentially see him jump into the open class. Marcus Scooby, who we talked about, Adam Wardzinski, who's going to be at heavy, Hideo Zuki, Gabriel Oliveira, and Pedro Machado, who's going to be in at medium heavy. What do you think about a potential open class where we could see all of those world-class competitors jump in?
I think that it's incredibly interesting. I think that one name that stands out to me is Mason Fowler. And the reason is I think that Mason does really well in open divisions. And I think his wrestling base is it's just an interesting thing to take into consideration when you think about the strength of all those competitors, when you think about how all those competitors are, I think every one of them are above medium heavy that you just listed.
Yeah, Pedro
So,
Machado was the lightest at medium heavy.
yeah. So Pedro Machado, lightest one, right? I think
of course, we could always see competitors from featherweight, lightweight, middleweight. Those were just some of the names in the heavier weight divisions that I thought could potentially take gold.
Yeah, and also you're a very thoughtful and intentional journalist. So the names that you have compiled are they're important names to consider. Pedro Machado is great. He has done a lot of work. He's improved a whole bunch, has given us some incredible matches. He had an incredible match for some Mateus Diniz, right?
Yep.
So, my memory's working. But I think Kynan, Felipe Andrew are two names in the open class you got to watch out for. Mason Fowler, more of a dark horse as far as the rest of them. Adam Wardzinski always does well in the open class. But I think that when you pair up like Kynan versus Adam Wardzinski, Kynan usually kind of gets the upper hand in that matchup. But it's a very interesting thing. I would love to see some matchups like Felipe Andrew could match up with any one of those guys, and it'd be exciting because that's just who Felipe Andrew is. Kynan, I think Kynan's real like super established competition in that bracket, I think is going to be Felipe Andrew. I think that Hideo Zuchi also gives an interesting look, but other than Felipe Andrew, Kynan I think is the front runner in that bracket. I think Mason Fowler is one of those guys who, he won Brazilian Nationals. Only a handful of Americans have won Brazilian Nationals, but Mason Fowler did it, competing against Gutenberg, and Gutenberg looks great. Like Gutenberg has looked, he almost won Worlds, and Victor Hugo just had the comeback story of the century, but Gutenberg looked great at Worlds. And I think if Mason goes out there with a good game plan and really, really plays right, he can pose an interesting threat to Kynan because Mason's very strong, very good wrestling base. Of course, Kynan has a great wrestling base too. Wrestling is a huge part of the Autos training regimen, but I think those are the three names that I'm really looking out for in that bracket.
If you had to pick a winner, make a prediction, who are you going to go with?
Felipe Andrew. Here's why. I think he's nuts. I think he's just crazy enough to where he can do it. Okay. Let me do this. I'll say my heart's choice and my intellectual choice. All right. I'm going to split myself up here. So I think my heart's choice, like if I were just watching jiu-jitsu and what I think would just primally happen, I think Felipe Andrew is incredibly dangerous. But my intellectual choice, like me really just sitting down and pondering the matchups and everything, I think Kainen is the front runner in the division. That
Yeah, I'm
doesn't
gonna
mean I want one person to win more than the other. I just
right.
like, do you kind of get what I'm saying? I think the viewers
Yeah.
at home might not really understand because I speak weird. And
I'm gonna go with Kynan. I feel like his performances last year were incredible. I know you mentioned at the Worlds he wasn't even happy with his performance, and he still won his second world title. He won the absolute GP, and the thing that I really like about Kynan is that it seems like every time he competes, he adds something new to his game. He looks like he's a little bit better guard passer. He's got sharper sweeps, better submissions, and I feel like that evolution is really going to carry through into 2023. So I think we're going to see Kynan come away with the open class title.
you see that you said it better than I could have ever said. Like that's more of like how I'm feeling intellectually, but I couldn't put it on paper or out in the open.
I got you. So let's move on to the female open class. We could potentially see Gabriele Pisagna. I think it's almost a certainty she'll be in the division defending her open class title from last year. We could potentially see Amy Campo, who she fought Gabriele in the open class final at the Worlds 2022, Maria Maliacek, Elizabeth Clay, Raquel Canuto, Talita Silva, potentially Luisa Montero, maybe Natalie Ribeiro. We saw Anna Rodriguez jump into the open class at last year's Europeans. Gabriele, of course, I think we can agree is the front runner. But are any of those other names? I know you mentioned Amy could potentially give her a good challenge, but what do you think about how that division could play out?
So I want to say first, I think Gabriele Pisagna is going to win. Start off there. I think that it's just been so, like Amy Campo gave her a challenge, of course, but it was still the Gabby Pisagna show, you know? And I think it's just kind of been that in the open division and in her division. And it had, I mean, the question would be easier to answer after I saw every one of those competitors' first match of the day. That's kind of how that bracket is, because Gabby Pisagna is so dominant, and she has been, and it's like so dominant that I remember I was having a conversation with my coach, and it was just like, he's just so impressed. Like, it's just so impressive, the level that she displays. And she, just like Kynan, is always adding something. So it's not like she's stuck here and everybody's catching up. No, it's like she's improving, and these guys need to catch up faster in order to make the gap smaller. So I think Gabby Pisagna, I think that she's definitely front runner. I think Elizabeth Clay and Amy Campo definitely make it interesting, but and nothing against any other names in the division. They're all incredible competitors in their own right. But if I were to make my prediction, I would have to go with Gabby Pisagna based on statistics. Do I think that some of the other competitors like Anna Rodriguez, who's incredible, Luisa Montero, Natalie Ribeiro, they're lighter, but they also have obviously a shot. Like they're established, they're great. I've seen crazier things in my life than upsets like that. And Maria Maliacek, Raquel Canuto, Talita Silva, those are also like, we're getting a little bit in the heavier divisions, a little bit more close to Gabby Pisagna. But it's hard to go against Gabby Pisagna when I look at that bracket. They're all great, but Gabby has just she's really made her mark on the open class divisions that she competes in. I think that whenever she's in an open class division, it's hard to bet against her.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. In 2022, she didn't lose a single match, won double gold at every major tournament, and she competed not only in the major tournaments, but she did some more open tournaments in Brazil and did extremely well, has a very high submission rate, very dominant positionally. I will say that I think Luisa Montero could definitely do very well in the open class too. She competed in 2019 at the Europeans. That was the last time she was at the event, and she lost to Necheli de Jesus in the open class final in a really close match. So Luisa has had a lot of success in black belt open class divisions at major tournaments.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I didn't know that, but like I said, nothing taken away from any of the other competitors. It's just like you said it yourself. She didn't lose a match. Didn't lose a single time. Did she? I don't even think I've seen her. I think I've seen her get scored on a handful of times. You know what I mean? And usually it was against Yara Suarez. So I rarely see her take an L. I think her BJJ Heroes page would probably give me anxiety because it's just all W's. You know, like it's just like very, very impressive stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be great. The open class divisions have so much potential to be incredible. So we covered quite a few topics. We covered the divisions that we're interested in seeing, who could potentially be going for the Grand Slam, covered the open class. Were there any other athletes that we didn't mention, maybe because we didn't talk about their division, or because they're lighter, we might not see them in the open class, that you wanted to touch on that you're particularly excited to watch?
I tried to bring up the names that I saw as we were going. So I think that that's a pretty concise and comprehensive look at some of the divisions, some of like the highlighted divisions at Europeans. Once again, everybody that is signed up at the black belt division at an IBJJF tournament has a shot. The better they are, the more established they are, perhaps they have a better shot. But the reality is, you are dealing with one human being versus another human being, and anything can happen, right? Crazy results happen all the time. So, never am I ever taking away anything from any competitor because I have a prediction or anything like that. It's just one guy's thought about a tournament, right? I really cannot wait to see how this tournament is going to pan out. I think it's very cool. Obviously, the IBJJF is the golden standard of jiu-jitsu competition, and man, there's so many great names. There's so many great opportunities. Like we're seeing Stefan Bantz as a name that we brought up earlier, but like first tournament at black belt. And then earlier we brought up some other competitors who were, I believe it was like featherweight or lightweight. There was a name of three competitors. Whatever division Elijah Dorsey is
Lightweight.
in. Okay, so lightweight. Those three competitors can win the tournament, and it would not be wrong of them to, because they're so good and the level is so great now. So, I'm really, really excited. There's no competitors that I haven't brought up that I want to bring up, but I am so excited for all these competitors to go out there and start off 2023 the right way, like I know that they're gonna.
Yeah, it's great that we're onto a new gi season 2023. Europeans always has so many great athletes competing. They all want to get that first title, that first major championship gold, and then their career and the rest of their year kind of flows down from there. So it's going to be a great event that I'm super excited for.
Yes, and you know what, Europeans is always. I feel like there's always great results at Europeans, and I think typically, it's such a hard tournament to win because it's different demographic of competitors too. Not everybody has the finances, the sponsorships, or the time to fly out to Paris and compete in a tournament, right? So we're seeing the best of the able to as well. And it's the same thing with like Pan Ams and Worlds. Like not everybody can fly out to America. Not everybody that's really amazing in Brazil that could potentially win can come to America. So I think I like that there's 4 majors per year, right? I like that there's the Worlds, the Pans, the Brazilian Nationals, and the Europeans, because we see the best of the best spanned out throughout the year. And we get to see sort of the ebb and flow of the different divisions because, hey, the world's a big place and not everybody can compete. If every tournament was like at the equator in like at the equator in some country that's equidistant for every major country, we'd do it. But that's not possible. So it just doesn't happen. So I think it's really cool that we have these 4 majors. And I think that it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really, really fun.
Well, Jake, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. If you guys want to watch the IBJJF European Jiu-Jitsu Championships, they start on Monday, January 23rd. They run through Sunday, January 29th. They conclude with the Black Belt Finals, and you can watch all the matches exclusively on Flow Grappling. We appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care.